Books I've been reading, I feel like I'm not really retaining anything from them. I just look at the words on the pages. Some books, it seems I cannot understand anything except maybe the cadence of the language. But still, the cadence alone can inspire something in me, enough that I keep going back to them. And this book that I'm writing, I thought of what it would mean to end it here. I've written enough now, the quota is filled, but I know it isn't there yet. I'll keep going with it. I'm sitting with the discomfort that the last chapter didn't feel good enough. To what standard, I'm unsure. That said, I've learned to appreciate the chapters that don't turn out properly, to recognize the value in the discomfort they reveal. Note I took from what I feel like I failed to articulate. The difficulty of what it means to be in a family, and the indulgence of telling the truth. Both of these ideas, I'm unsure how to approach them. That uncertainty, the feeling of their magnitude, their pairing and dissonance, what I'm omitting, what I seem unable to get out of myself, the ways in which my mind perhaps unconsciously tries to hide certain details, and inevitably, maybe in an attempt to render them at all, creates fiction from reality. To recognize the shame that's there, to recognize what it really is about, to recognize the idea that lingers in my mind, that I am inferior, that I'm doing something wrong. I've come a long way in accepting that side of myself, and I can see it's a beautiful thing in a way. It's profound ignorance and denial. It's humility and innocence. The amount of rage and destruction it can cause. The sheer velocity of its power. Its defiance against all that is. To want to disappear into the vacuum of it, down into the hole, and into the dirt. I often write about the uncertainty and the difficulty of writing, how fragile and frustrating and volatile the process can be. But through that process, I can see how my confidence has developed, and I'm seeing the proof of the value. I'm sentimental towards that metaphysical truth. It is mostly useless to try to measure the pragmatic value of what a book like this would be. But still, I find myself considering it every now and again. That friction can act as a decent traction to build my argument. My insecurities aside, I'm endlessly interested in the question of what use this writing would be for anyone. It's a prevalent side of me that thinks that it would be entirely useless, but that is my dumbest and most obvious self. It's a lie to think that it wouldn't mean anything. It's a comfort to think that it would be useless, because that gives me space to hide. To think of all the books I've been impacted by in my life, even in my illiteracy. To say they are all useless, that they are just paper bound with string and glue. I have to give myself the credit that this manuscript so far, if I'm honest, I must admit that I've written it to the full extent of my ability, and it continues onward. In this draft alone, I've deleted so much more than what I've kept. I suppose I'm proud of myself for that. And still, the story has yet to begin, and the story may not begin, and I suppose I'm proud of myself for that as well. I understand and accept the pitfall in that, but it has to come to a point where all I can say is, fuck it. The ethos from the gate has been to conjure the perseverance to write this thing thoroughly, and that is what I'm doing. To honor the inspiration of it, to be honest about what that is, to not bullshit around with it, to allow it to be what it is, and to allow myself to be what I am. To set the exposure correctly in its complete and raw pretension and indulgence. sent a photo of Nora to my dad, a photo that Miriam took. "Front yard?" he asked. "That's right," I wrote back. "Salad and chicken lunch with Russian dressing. Lots of lettuce. 6,200 steps before lunch. More than us. Rain?" he asked. "Yes, clearing up," I said. "Olympics finish 6 o'clock Eastern Time." Nora awake from nap. My dad is doing okay. We don't know what the future holds, but I'll be here. I will continue to call him every day, and we will talk. Not to make up for lost time necessarily, but because that is what we're doing. We used to talk for about 30 seconds at a time every week or two, and now we talk for about a half an hour every night. And that is all I ever wanted from him. And I have to admit that no matter what bullshit I carry from the past, of how things were before, that I have all there is. The time has not run out. That is the reality, and anything else is utter bullshit. After Miriam changed Nora's diaper, she wanted to trim her nails, but Nora would not sit still. So she got me to hold her phone up to play a YouTube video for Nora to watch so that she would stay still. Nora watched the video, a blank stare, her mouth agape. Miriam trimmed her nails with the electric file that we bought, the one we brought to the hospital with us when she was born. I walked them to their friend's house, and afterward I went to the library to clear my head some. There was a sign on the shelf that said, "Survey in progress. Please do not re-shelve the books." I didn't know what that really meant. I looked through the books and read the opening pages of all the titles that caught my interest. I felt critical for the most part. Even the books that were undisputed classics, I noticed how I could only seem to read 3 or 5 pages before my thoughts split off and I wanted to check my phone or move on to the next book. It was like Nora with her toys. My attention, like hers, seemed to randomly divert. I couldn't quite understand why. Some of the books seemed to try so hard to be provocative from the gate, to hook the reader. You can sense how desperate they feel, to compete with the others on the shelf, to scream and cry for attention instead of simply being what they were, and I judged them accordingly. Browsing through the shelves, connecting with the inspiration of all the ideas, the unlimited potential, the unfathomable amount of work and history that went into all the titles in that tiny branch alone. I continued going through each book, trying not to miss any. I continued to read the first few pages of every book that took my interest, until my attention began to divert again. It made me feel inferior, like there was something wrong with me, like maybe I was dyslexic. I didn't force myself to work through it. Instead, I put the book back on the shelf and moved on to the next one, trying to trust my instincts. Maybe my subconscious was looking for something that it didn't have time to explain to me. It's very difficult to write the beginning of a book, to decide what the first page should be, the amount of pressure that weighs on that decision. I will do my best not to overwrite the first page of this book. Instead, I will begin at a point that already is what it needs to be. I had the sense at some point that I should learn to write more slowly and to read more slowly. Maybe it will happen in time. Once it's been exhausted from the tank, once it's been beat out of the tank. But in the meantime, grappling through that anxiety, whatever it is, that is where the momentum is built. It doesn't matter what I think in the end. It is only a matter of sitting and writing down what there is to write, and that is enough. I went through all the shelves and then went back to A and went through them all again, thinking that maybe I would be able to focus longer on some of the titles on a second try. I came across a book in the S section that I'd missed the first time around. I read through a bit and soon lost track of how many pages I'd read. It required no effort. I sat on the ground and read it. and then I leaned against the wall and read it, and then I sat on a chair and read. I continued to read the book until I looked at my watch and saw how much time had passed. I messaged Miriam and told her I was still at the library. She said if I waited 15 minutes or so, we could walk home together. I signed out the book and brought it home. On the walk back, Miriam told me how Nora was with her friend and what they were up to and all of that. I don't know if I said much. When we came home, I sat on the couch and read more of the book. I read it at the table while Miriam cooked dinner, and then I read it at the dinner table after we ate. I read some when we went upstairs and then in bed, and then in the morning when I woke up I read more, and I understood what it meant. I'm grateful for the ability to spend some time at the library, to have found that book. I'm grateful for the time to sit and practice my writing. I'm grateful that I've made it this far into my life and that I haven't died. That I've been able to dig as far down as I have into my own self, to have dug far enough down to see the crack in the dirt above me, to see the light that is there.